A North Korean prison guard is driving a truck full of inmates when he asks a question that will destroy his entire life. "Why are you here?" The prisoner stares back at him. "I don't know. I was 2 years old when they brought me." This is 1993. Camp 22, North Korea. One of the most brutal prison camps on Earth. Total control zone. No one gets out alive. The prisoner sitting across from him is in his 20s. He spent his entire conscious life behind barbed wire. So has his brother. Their whole family is dead, executed, and neither of them knows why. The guard's name is Myeong-chol. For 8 years, he's watched people starve. He's witnessed executions. He's participated in torture. He thought he was doing the right thing. But this conversation is about to change everything. Because in a few months, An's own father will speak against the regime. His mother and siblings will be arrested. And An will realize he's next. This is the story of a man who spent nearly a decade as an instrument of terror, who tried to save the prisoners he once guarded, and who discovered that some cages are built inside the mind. 1987. And my uncle is 18 years old. In North Korea, being selected as a prison guard isn't punishment, it's an honor. A privilege reserved only for families who've proven absolute loyalty to the Kim regime across generations. Out of his entire district, only one person is chosen. It's him. He enters the army and gets sent to Station 11 for training. The indoctrination begins immediately. Day after day, the same message gets drilled into him with mechanical precision. The prisoners are not like you. They are enemies of Kim Il-sung. They oppose the state. They are traitors. If they try to escape, you shoot them. If they disobey, you kill them. Young An doesn't question this. Why would he? He's been chosen. He's special. He's on the right side of the fence. They give him an AK-47, pistols, a uniform that grants him absolute power over human life. More power, he'll later reflect, than slave owners ever had. Because at least slaves were given food. Here in the camps, starvation is a tool, a weapon, a way to break what's left of a person's will. And get stationed at Camp 22, a place designated as a total control zone. This is important. Total control means no one gets out. Not ever. Not for good behavior. Not for rehabilitation. The only exit is death. For 8 years, this becomes his life. At first, it's easy. The prisoners are faceless, nameless, just bodies moving through forced labor. He participates in torture. He does this because he's been told it's right. Because he's been told these people deserve it. But then something changes and becomes a truck driver. His job is transporting prisoners between camps. And in those trucks, during those long drives, something happens he never expected. He talks to them, and they talk back. One conversation stands out above all others and asks a prisoner a simple question. "Why are you here? What did you do?" The prisoner looks at him confused. "I don't know. I was 2 years old when they brought me here." The prisoner is in his 20s now. He spent his entire conscious life inside this camp. So has his brother. Their whole family is dead, executed, and neither of them knows why. This is when An learns about the 3-generation rule, a doctrine created by Kim Il-sung himself. If one person commits a political crime, 3 generations are punished. The grandfather's generation, the father's generation, the son's generation. Whole families erased for the actions of one. These 2 brothers, now 24 and 26 years old, have spent over 2 decades in Camp 22 for something their grandfather might have done, something they never even learned about, and begins to see the system for what it truly is. Not justice, not protection, just machinery designed to consume human beings and leave nothing behind. He starts questioning everything he was taught. But he's still a guard. He still wears the uniform. He still follows orders. Until 1994, An is on leave visiting his family when the news arrives. His father is dead. Suicide? The reason? He questioned the regime's rationing system. A few words. A moment of doubt spoken out loud. That's all it takes. Under North Korea's law of guilt by association, An's mother and younger siblings are immediately arrested, sent to the very camps An has been guarding for nearly a decade. And An knows he's next. He's the eldest son. In North Korea, that means something. It means responsibility. It means he'll be held accountable for his father's words. It means he'll be sent to the other side of the fence. He has a complete psychological break, because he's done nothing wrong. He's worked hard. He's been loyal. He's been a perfect servant of the state. But none of that matters. The system doesn't care about loyalty. It doesn't care about service. It only cares about control. And now An understands something crucial, something that will save his life. Because he's been inside the camps. Because he knows exactly what awaits him on the other side of that fence. He has knowledge most North Koreans don't have. He knows what he's facing, and he decides he won't face it. Back at the camp, An is being watched. There's a guard assigned to surveil him, to make sure he doesn't run, to make sure he accepts his fate, and needs to get rid of this guard. He needs to earn back trust he never actually lost, so he does something desperate, something theatrical, something that will convince them of his loyalty. He writes a letter in his own blood, a pledge of devotion to Kim Jong-il. Words of absolute unwavering allegiance, written in the only ink that could convince them he means it. It works. The surveillance stops. The guard gets reassigned. Now An has a choice to make. He could run alone, disappear into the night, swim the Tumen River into China, and never look back. But he thinks about those two brothers. The ones who've spent their entire lives in Camp 22. The ones who know nothing but barbed wire and starvation and cold concrete floors. He decides to save them. One night after finishing his shift, An arms himself. A K-47, several pistols. He's prepared for a firefight if it comes to that. He climbs into a prison truck. The engine starts. He drives to where the two brothers are being held. He tells them to get in. He tells them they're leaving. He tells them they're going to be free. But here's the thing about spending your entire life in a cage. Even when the door opens, you don't always walk through it. The brothers are terrified. They've never known anything outside these walls. They've never known safety. They've never known what it means to not be a prisoner. And so somewhere along the route, they make a decision. They get off the truck. They walk back into the darkness. An is alone now. He's risked everything to save two people who couldn't be saved. Not because they didn't want freedom, but because they couldn't recognize it when it was offered. He drives to the Tumen River, the border between North Korea and China, between captivity and possibility. He abandons the truck, leaves the guns behind, and swims. The water is cold. The current is strong. But he makes it across. The moment An escaped and crossed the Tumen River, a search party from the camp was immediately formed. The river became surrounded by guards looking for him. After jumping into the water and swimming to the Chinese border, he spent his first night of freedom hiding from guards. 150 armed guards came all the way into Yanji, China, just to catch him. And they tried to catch him in cooperation with Chinese soldiers. This means the manhunt wasn't just North Korean. It was international, and had no time to really sense what China was like or what its economic development was like. He was so desperate to escape the massive search effort that he wasn't paying attention to how things were different. Thanks to assistance from the South Korean government, he was able to leave China. Otherwise, he thinks he would have been shot to death. He can't share the details of his path from China to South Korea because there was a huge search effort from both China and North Korea to have him arrested, and eventually makes it to South Korea. But freedom doesn't erase memory. It doesn't undo what he's done, what he's seen, what he's been. There's a famous North Korean defector named Kang. He was a prisoner in the camps for 10 years. When An arrives in Seoul, he meets Kang for the first time. And Ann is afraid, because Kang was a prisoner and Ann was a guard. The person he feared most in his new life was not a government agent or an assassin. It was a victim. Someone he might have hurt. Someone who had every reason to hate him. South Korea is shocking in other ways too, and watches people on television openly criticize the president. They call politicians corrupt. They demand accountability, even years after defecting, and struggles to do this himself. The brainwashing runs that deep. Even in freedom, the conditioning remains. But slowly, something shifts, and realizes he can't undo the past. He can't bring back the people who died. He can't erase his role in their suffering, but he can do something else. He can tell the truth. Today, and Myeong-chol is one of North Korea's most important human rights activists. He founded an organization called NK Watch. Along with his colleagues, he's documented the suffering of hundreds of victims. He submitted over 700 detailed petitions to the United Nations Human Rights Office. And here's the most remarkable part. He works alongside Kang Chol-hwan, the prisoner and the guard, the victim and the perpetrator. Together, they're trying to bring about change. They send USB drives into North Korea, drives loaded with Wikipedia pages, foreign media, information the regime doesn't want its people to see. And my uncle spent 8 years as a prison guard in North Korea's most brutal camps. He was both attacker and victim, both instrument of oppression and target of the same system he served. He tried to save 2 prisoners and failed. But in the decades since, he saved countless others. Not by breaking them out of physical prisons, but by breaking the chains of ignorance that keep North Korea's system alive. He's living proof that redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about refusing to let the past define the future. The 2 brothers he tried to save that night are probably dead now. Camp 22 was officially closed in 2012, but not because conditions improved, because everyone inside had already died, and carries that weight every day. The knowledge that he was part of the machine that consumed them, that his efforts to save them came too late, that even when he opened the cage door, they couldn't walk through it. But he also carries something else. The knowledge that speaking the truth matters, that bearing witness matters, that every USB drive smuggled into North Korea is a crack in the wall, that every testimony he gives is another nail in the coffin of the system that tried to break him. And my uncle was trained to see prisoners as traitors, as enemies, as less than human. But one conversation with a prisoner who spent his entire life in a camp for a crime he didn't commit changed everything. It didn't happen all at once. It wasn't a sudden revelation. It was slow, painful, like waking up from a nightmare only to realize you're still inside it. He couldn't save those 2 brothers, but he saved himself. And in doing so, he became a weapon against the very system he once served. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't fight. It's admit you were wrong, that you were complicit, that you didn't know better, but now you do, and that you'll spend the rest of your life trying to make it right.